Right, today I'm talking to Noah Petersons. Hi,
Hello. All
how are
right.
you then? Noah, it's
Yeah,
good to have you on.
good, thanks.
Cool, right. So, traditional first question is, what do you do?
I do quite a bit. So mainly I'd say I am a student because I'm doing my master's at Cardiff University doing the magazine journalism course, which is really enjoyable and I'm really pleased to be on the course. I also DJ and produce my own music, mainly like jungle and house, but kind of ranging a wide variety of different sounds. What else do I do? I surf quite a bit. I've surfed all my life, so surfing's very integral to my life. Um, and I think that's it. Yeah,
I think it's enough.
yeah, I think that's enough. Yeah.
So, what's sort of interested me is that when I know that you've surfed right from very
Hmm.
early on, right? Um, and there is a sort of an interesting sort of comparison with the people who've played a musical instrument like from day one. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Well, not exactly day one, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Their earliest recollections is something musical.
Mm.
Um, and it's that sort of way that develops people and the sort of direction they take in their life. So I'm quite interested in let's start with the surfing, shall we?
Hmm. Mm.
Um, so what's your earliest recollections of getting in the water?
Well, earliest would be just on a bodyboard with my parents, them just like pushing me into little couple inch high waves and just being absolutely ecstatic about the feeling of just skipping along the water, whether that's just for a second going half a mile an hour. But just I think from then I was just hooked. I think growing up in and around the sea, it becomes part of you. And we've always joked that it is an addiction. And when you don't get in the sea for a long period of
Yeah,
time, you get a little bit twitchy and a little bit
yeah,
scratchy that you need to get back.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, that's the earliest memory. And then I suppose just having surf lessons with my friends when I was probably 6, 7, 8 years old, and just being freezing cold but loving it and wanting to get back in the water every time I get out.
Mm, mm. There's a lot of things, isn't there, about even if you're freezing cold in the sea, there's a sort of a sort of an adrenaline effect or a dopamine effect or whatever. Um, of just being cold and then just doing things and then warming up, you know.
Well, yeah, definitely. It's like you see
Um,
all the ice plunges
yes,
nowadays, the massive trend. Like it's just, I think it's the
absolutely.
same
Yeah,
thing, just getting in, getting cold, and then getting home, and you feel just
yeah,
amazing in
yeah,
yourself.
that's right. There is something about the fact that it's almost like a restart button that
Mm.
somehow
Yeah,
flips
yeah.
off, isn't
Switch is
it?
a switch in your head.
Yeah, yeah. So, and also the other thing is, in my family, I've had a number of people that were in the Merchant Navy, and they used to get twitchy about not being back at sea.
Mm.
And I think there's a little bit of an element about the lure of the sea
Mm.
as well, isn't there, within that, with what
Well,
you're saying?
yeah. I can't explain it
No,
at
I don't
all.
think anybody can. That's the
Yeah, no,
thing.
it's not something that's even, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And of course, you live very close to the sea, don't
Yeah.
you? And always
Yeah,
have done.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Like 15 minutes from the beach,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. So
dreamy. Yeah.
that's it.
But I think it's like, yeah, if you grow up with it and then you're not around it, like now I've moved to Cardiff and I'm busy with uni and I'm not getting in the water as much as I like to be. get a sense of like guilt and like you should be going to the sea, even though there's so much more on and it can't be a priority all the time. You still have this little
Yeah,
cog in your head saying,
yeah,
get to the beach, get to the beach.
yeah. This is interesting because you see, I see a very similar sort of link with people playing musical instruments
Mm,
when that again, it's like a switch that goes off
mm,
when suddenly it becomes part of who you are.
yeah.
And sometimes it can be. I mean, certainly, I'm not so much like this now, but I could get quite twitchy about not playing.
Yeah.
Um, and but of course, what happens is your head. I don't know if you get this, where your thinking is always sort of revolving around something to do with. In my case, it'd be to do with music. But
Mm,
even you start to understand things from a musical perspective, even if it's not music. You
mm,
know, it's like you're completely wired up that way. Strange,
mm.
very
Yeah,
interesting.
definitely. I suppose it's just how your brain's wired from a
Yeah,
young
yeah, yeah,
age
yeah,
or over a long time. You
yeah.
just
Just by doing the
fall into
thing.
that
Yeah,
those routines.
yeah, yeah. So you've done a lot of traveling and surfing, haven't you? So
I've done a lot, yeah, fair bit. I've been very fortunate to
yeah,
travel before I did my undergrad, which was amazing. Going to I spent 2 months in Sri Lanka and then about 5 months traveling around Indonesia to all different islands and surf spots, and it's just an amazing, humbling experience.
right.
But yeah, yeah, best couple of years, best year of my life, I'd say,
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah. So
that.
what was it that really struck you about that?
Just, well, for obviously the waves and being in boiling water and
Mm.
sunshine all day, and it's just amazing. But also, I think I think it was half of it was just being out there, just me and my mates, kind of figuring it out as we go. So like,
Yeah,
right, we want to get to this spot, right? So we need to book a car and then rent that car from there. So we need to get to there, and then we need to get that car to that car ferry to get it across to this island, and then we need to go across, drive 4 hours across that island to get another ferry, and then go here and then go there, and just like the expeditioning of it all, and just being that if something goes wrong, it could really go wrong now. It's like
yes,
the risk behind it. I don't know.
yeah.
It's just.
Do you know there's something very odd about this because I do a lot of walking and I did the
Mm,
some of the old um, pilgrimage trails.
mhm.
And okay, you're not doing exactly what people would have done, obviously, because they would have been
No,
coming from
but
anywhere,
mm,
and obviously some of the old trails wouldn't be there anymore because there'd be a housing estate or whatever. But you're still sort of doing the same sort of thing. And
mm,
again, if you and I thought about this a lot, you were doing something that you had to really organize your thinking around how you could accomplish those things.
mm,
And okay, for me, there was no risk particularly,
mm,
even if you
mm,
fell over and hurt yourself because you got a mobile phone. But back in the day, there would have been real
mm.
risk attached to that journeying, you know.
Yeah, and I think it is that sort of, yeah, going back to back then when, yeah,
Yeah,
you would have this risk and not
yeah,
having the reliability of your phone all the time because your
exactly.
random £2 SIM that you got might not work out in the middle of the jungle, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. So
yeah,
in a weird sort of way, what you were experiencing was the sort of thing that people did in order to, well, in their case, it was a spiritual thing, but in a way, we could think of it as a sort of deeply psychological thing, couldn't we?
yeah,
Of how it's part of that excitement of doing
mm,
that and organizing that and dealing
yeah,
with the sort of weirdness of how do a bunch of teenage boys actually getting
figuring
to
out how
one
to do
place
it.
and then not becoming injured.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's obviously it's like the destination is everything and
Yeah,
once getting there. But I
yeah,
honestly, looking back on it, do think that the journey was,
yeah,
yeah, half of the fun, even though however drooling or long it was
yeah.
always a good crack.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Just
yeah.
get going, get
And
moving.
that thing of being with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was lucky to have some really good mates I was
Yeah,
traveling with. So
yeah, yeah,
we were a big team,
yeah, yeah.
which was
That
really
is actually
nice.
quite a man thing, actually, being in a team of men doing
Yeah.
stuff, because I've done things like that. And there is something about that camaraderie and
Mm.
sort of piss taking with one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all part of the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, just as an interesting, when did you get to the point where you actually thought yourself, I'm actually quite good at this?
What, surfing?
Yeah,
I try not to think that. Obviously, I've been surfing for what must be nearly 15 years now. And so obviously there's a sense that I know I'm a good surfer. I know I have a lot, I'm very knowledgeable about the
yeah.
water.
That's what I
And
mean. It's that bit.
yeah, so I think it's just, I think it's having scares and being humbled by the sea.
Yeah,
So there was a, well, it must be a couple of years ago now, there was like this 50-year swell, massive, massive swell that came through. Um, One of my friends actually that I was traveling with called me up being like, oh, I'm down at this beach, come down, it's really good, like it's only going to get better, blah, blah, blah. Get down, paddle out. And it was big, very big, but I could handle it in my ability, in my kind of understanding of the sea. But then that swell kept building and kept building and kept building throughout the time that me and Jack were out there. And it was just us two, really gloomy and grey, and no one walking along the coast. So it got a bit, we were like,
yeah,
this is getting a bit hairy now. And then it
yeah,
just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then Jack got washed in, his leash snapped. I like lost all sight of him. Bearing in mind these waves that are like the size of houses are just coming out
yeah,
and crashing on
yeah,
you. Um, I'm getting beaten, my leg ropes wrapping around my neck. I'm almost fainting. Luckily managed to like body surf one in. And yeah, that was probably the most humbling experience. Literally crawled up the beach, like
yeah, yeah,
trembling with
yeah,
just adrenaline from almost drowning.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I think it's you have to know your limits
yeah,
and never underestimate the sea because I think that's what a lot of people can fall into a trap of doing is you
yeah.
get good, you get confident in the water, but then you kind of get a bit complacent.
You get a bit blasé, don't you?
Yeah, you get a bit blasé and kind of forget that you need to
Yeah. You
respect what's going
See,
on.
this is an interesting thing again because thinking about this from a creative point of view, because
Mm,
I interview lots of different people doing lots of different things,
mm,
and there's always that sort of thing that either people think that they're an imposter in
mm,
what they do, right?
mhm.
Even though they could be like some of the best
Yeah,
musicians or whatever, but they always
yeah,
think that they're a bit of an imposter, and that's true for lots of different types of skills. But I think what it is, you get to a point where you're comfortable in what it is that you are,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And your level of stuff, and you realise that there are certain things that you need to know that is something that you're not capable of doing. Yeah.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
and being able to be humble about the fact that other people might be able to do that, but that's not your place. And
mm,
sometimes it's not even to do with your ability, but like you're saying, circumstances.
mm,
Like, you were in a place where and obviously it was getting quite leery, but there was no one around.
yeah,
And that sort of thing of like, well, if things go wrong here, they could go very wrong.
mm,
Nothing we can
yeah,
do. And again, I see that and I call it a perfect storm situation. Like, if you're doing a gig and you get a whole series of things just go wrong at the same time, it's like,
mhm.
well, there's nothing you can do about this.
Yeah,
You just have to accept that
yeah.
there's no amount of experience is going
Beyond
to.
your control sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So you were mentioning that you're doing a master's in what you said it was a magazine
Magazine
journalism,
journalism, yeah.
right? So what's the I know it's a bit of a stupid thing to say. It's obviously to do with magazines, but what's the
Yeah.
difference with the other courses?
So there's a fair few journalism courses at
Yeah,
Cardiff. So there's like international journalism, there's broadcast journalism, there's news journalism, there's magazine journalism, and I think there's a couple others that. I don't do so much with. But the main difference with magazine, it's a lot more multimedia focused, and it's, well, in my opinion, a lot more creative. You get a lot more opportunities to go down different branches. So, like, obviously, with news, our last semester was primarily focusing on news journalism,
Yeah.
which I didn't really enjoy too much because I like writing big, long, flowery features. Um, but yeah, so the news lot will just be doing news throughout, and the broadcast lot do news, but they also do a lot of learn their camera skills and studio skills and this and that. But we kind of get a nice, or what I'm finding so far is we get a nice kind of overview of it all, as well as developing design skills through actually making magazines,
Mm, mm, mm.
which I'm really enjoying so
Yeah,
far.
yeah, it's interesting because, you know, for a lot of people, they would sort of think about, magazines and newspapers,
Yeah.
they've had their day, but that's not the point, is it? It's the processes behind how you think
Yeah,
about a
it's
presentation.
kind of weird when I say to people I do magazine journalism. I get two sorts of either, yeah, people being like, oh, what magazines, what like okay magazine that are in hairdressers and stuff, that people either like brush it off or really see into it and see it's for what it is.
Yeah,
And yeah, the magazine industry isn't just print nowadays
no,
at all. It's
no.
such a vast online world as well,
Mm,
um, through podcasting and
mm,
all of those forms of getting stories out there, really.
mm, mm, mm,
But yeah, I really like print personally. I think it's
mm.
nice to have something tactile and
Yeah, yeah, I do, and I think a lot of people are beginning to realise that.
yeah,
I'm in the process of recording. It's a long process because
mm,
we've got people all over the place,
mm,
musicians. Um, but you do, at the end of the day, need something tactile. It's no good it just being some sort of, WAV file or something.
yeah,
It's got to have something that is a physical thing because it's a form of art. So when you talk
yeah,
about magazines, I think a lot of people forget that a lot of magazine design become became fundamental to the way that people presented lots and lots of things. And I'm thinking about the magazine. I don't know if you come across this, but the magazine called The Face, which
yeah.
was back in I suppose the
They've been
90s.
going for years now.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
that when it first came out, the design of the magazine was just stunning,
yeah, really
you
bold.
know, and it was so different from anything else that was
Mm,
there.
mm,
Um, and it really changed the way that people saw design.
mm,
And I think we forget that that things like a magazine or a book
mm.
cover
Yeah.
can be so powerful that it changes all the other book covers.
Mm,
Um, I think there's a book called H is for Hawk, which came out several years ago, and I think it won. I think it won the Booker Prize, a Booker
mhm,
Man Prize, whatever it's called.
mhm.
And that design became almost the way that people saw any other book that was coming out.
Right,
Like
yeah.
a sort of slightly grainy, almost drawn picture.
Yeah, well, there's kind of a trends going on now where people are shining away from that super digitalized,
Yeah,
sharp, polished. Like there's
yeah,
a lot more handwriting and
yeah,
scanning stuff in and like
yeah,
using multimedia to create like a almost like a childlike
yeah,
look that's
yeah,
not super polished and super perfect. It might be a bit hard to read the writing, but it's just the next phase of this design cycle that
yeah.
so
And
many
the
people go
interesting thing
through.
about that is that it's about engagement with people, isn't it? And if you see
Mm,
something that's handwritten, I think that's got more of an impact on an unconscious level about it almost being more tactile or something
mm.
like that.
Well, I think especially in the world where everyone's so chronically online, and I think people are starting to wake up to that. Like
Mm,
there's lots of chats all the time about how how bad your phones are and need to get offline and stuff. So I think, yeah, having that handwriting or even feeling the pages in your hand,
Yeah,
like it
yeah,
really resonates with people as to
yeah,
like this digital detox
yeah, yeah, yeah,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, because it's this sort of thing that, when people go like, oh, well, I can remember a time where people were saying, oh, well, books, then that's it.
Mm.
We don't need books anymore. Uh, this is just
Yeah.
one more.
Yeah.
Um, um, but it's almost like if you've got a book, you can write in the margins. You can do all
Mm.
sorts of stuff with a book. Um, the very fact that you're turning a page and you put something in there to mark the place
Mm.
and all this, it's a very different experience.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's a completely
Uh,
different world. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So then you draw that across to magazines, or you put that across to anything else that's got a physical aspect. And obviously, what going back to this thing about the recording that I'm doing, it's going to be a CD. Well, I mean, who's got a CD player? But you
Mm.
know, vinyl was, as you know, doing
Mm.
DJing.
Yeah.
Vinyl was like we'd written vinyl off, even
Yeah.
though vinyl was a better sound. It's a sort of a richer sound. But it's like, right, okay, so if you got the item, you can have a layer of
Hmm.
that's digital, that is,
Mm.
there's QR code that will take you to this other thing, and it opens up this other domain. But I think having something that you possess is an important point.
Yeah. And that's
You
why, yeah,
know,
like you said about vinyl, that's why, like, I think vinyl's not coming back because it never really went anywhere. But I
no,
think a lot, especially my generation, a lot more people are buying and investing. But I know I am, especially like past year or so, really getting into going down to the shop and digging through crates. And it's just a whole different experience, especially for being a DJ. The
yeah,
whole experience of just flicking through, take that one, take that one, take that one, listening to them rather than like downloading songs online. It's just right,
exactly,
that one,
yeah.
that one, that. It's a lot more, yeah, methodical and
Yeah, yeah, and I
engaging.
think I think what that does is it stops, because one of the problems I think we have is this thing of choice, right?
Mm,
Because back in the day when they were talking about you know TV being, you could get God knows how many channels. It was
mm.
very the amount of choice you're going to have,
Yeah,
because you know what it's like now, because you're at this end of it, which is like, well, most of it's rubbish.
yeah. We
Most
spend
of it
longer
is,
looking for something to watch on TV than you
yeah.
actually
What's
watching
happened to
it.
all these incredible films? They're never there.
Yeah.
You think, oh, I'd really like to see that film, and you have to sort of hunt it out.
Mm,
So what happens is, you got people buying secondhand, and I think this is really fascinating. Like you're saying, you're going to shops and finding old vinyl.
mm,
It's the same thing with books. And I
mm,
spend a lot of my time just hanging around um, uh, charity shops, going
mm.
through the books,
Yeah.
because you can find amazing stuff, or these freebie libraries that people just take a load of books and they put them in the middle of a shopping centre, and somebody else
Mm.
comes on, or they're in an old telephone box.
Yeah, yeah.
You could dump off the books you don't want and pick up a few that
And
are
someone
already in
else
there.
might find one really interesting.
Exactly, and I
Yeah.
think that is amazing,
Yeah.
and I think that is an amazing thing from a creative point of view, because you're going to come across things that you've never seen, and I think this is one of the
Mm.
dangers of online.
Mm.
It's an echo chamber,
Well, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and the whole point about journalism really was to introduce people to ideas that they probably hadn't thought of. And okay, there's always been, and you know this anyway, but there's always been media that's right wing or left wing or
Mhm.
centre or
Mm.
whatever.
Mm.
So if you buy into that, you're going to get the sort of thing
That
you
sort of
expect.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But now it's even more so, isn't it? I mean,
Mm.
you're just getting it. The algorithm is just feeding you stuff that you want.
Yeah. That you want
Um,
to do.
so so what do you feel? Because I want to link the thing with the surfing back to
Hmm. Hmm.
what you're doing, and also the DJing, because I'm really interested in that. How do you feel? I want to say what is the future of journalism. That's not really what I mean, but sort of where's it going a little bit? What's the directionality of as you see it.
Journalism of the journalism industry.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but just generally how we pick up information, maybe.
Yeah, that's a really tough one because I think it depends like what sort of scope you're looking through. Because if you're
Yeah,
looking through the news scope, I'm not really because you're getting even more polarized media outlets, which are these guys are bad, those guys are bad. So I'd hope for the future that the news journalism industry carries on to maintain the impartiality
yeah,
and staying true to what the core values of what actual journalism is. Um, then you could talk about AI, the impact of AI on journalism. Like I've actually just written an analysis about AI on the journalism industry, and it's quite fascinating how beneficial AI can be
yeah,
in these back end automations, making stuff a lot more automated and reducing man hour labors. But then also at the same time, everything generated by AI needs to be subject to human overview so it doesn't
yeah,
push out any misinformation or biases, not through itself, through the it's like the AI's pushing biases, but just by accident even.
yeah,
So it actually ends up that AI doesn't push, no, doesn't actually ease anything. It's just kind of redistributes labor across
yeah,
a lot of people. But yeah, the future of journalism, I don't know. Like to think that it will carry on a nice upward trajectory of staying impartial, getting the underrepresented stories out there, and
yeah,
won't fall into these, yeah, echo chambers that
yeah,
just
yeah.
result in incels.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that we have with any sort of technology that's new, you know,
Mm,
is that we become totally and utterly obsessed by it.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Um, and everything seems to be dominated by that thing until people sort of get their heads together, and then it starts to fall into some sort of area where it works well without it becoming completely overbearing. I mean, I
Mm,
always tell the story with regard to things like that, to do with the the sort of synth drum. Now
mm,
you'll know this because you'll know the
mm,
period of time I'm talking about. But we the first one of these where you had these sort of like a synth drum that had a um, you could hit something and it would make a noise.
mm,
They had this thing where you hit it and it went boom, right? And then
mm,
suddenly it was in every disco record going. So Ring
yeah.
My Bell's a classic one.
Yeah.
And then it was everywhere. Every song had this bloody thing going boom,
Yeah.
boom, right?
I know the sound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know exactly what I
Yeah.
mean because if
Yeah.
you're DJing, um, and then after a while, it sort of didn't. It sort of disappeared, but you'd get certain people using it in a sound, in a style that either wasn't what you expected.
Hmm.
And a good example of this was Sly Dunbar, the reggae drummer, who used to
Hmm.
work for Black Uhuru as well as Grace Jones and everything. And he was using synth drums as well as acoustic drums, but he could get away with it.
Mm.
And it sounded musical instead of just some sort of weird gadget that was being
Yeah.
used. And I think that that sort of story is very much what goes on with a lot of any technology, where
Mm.
suddenly everything's that thing. Oh, let's just do it with AI, and,
Hmm. Hmm.
and of course you've got a lot of pop songs with, imaginary
Yeah.
musicians as
AI
well as,
fabricated vocals.
yeah,
Yeah.
and of course on the face of it, it sounds quite good until you listen to it and you think that sounds actually completely devoid of anything.
Mm.
Technically it's pretty good, and it makes sense as a pop song, but
Mm.
it's pretty naff. But if you listen to a lot of pop music at the moment, that is exactly what it's like. Where
Well,
it's sort of,
all it's there to do is sell, though, isn't it? It's
yeah,
not. It's like you're saying it's like all devoid of life, but it's
yeah.
not trying to. They're
Well,
not
it's not
trying to.
saying
They're
anything.
not trying to put any soul or
No, they're not
any
saying
give
anything to
anything
the
into it
market.
or give back. They just want clicks and sales,
Yes,
and that's where I think yeah, AI generated music will be. I don't know. It will take over if there's not guidelines put in place.
yeah, or people would just eventually get bored of it. I mean, there is
Well,
that, that might be the thing that does it,
mm,
a bit like the ring my bell drum type of thing. It might be
mm.
just in the end, it's like, oh God, it's that again
It's
type of
another
thing.
just trend that has
Yeah, yeah. I
happened.
mean, if you think about people going to, lots of people going and getting vinyl
Mm,
and hunting out old vinyl recordings, that's completely the opposite of the
yeah,
AI generated
yeah,
stuff. So I think, it's a little bit like saying, well, books haven't disappeared
mm,
just because we can
yeah,
have something on an iPad.
hmm
Um, and most people don't like reading off a Kindle or
mm,
whatever. It just doesn't. In the back. If you go back to when it came out, it's like, well, that's the answer.
yeah,
You know, um, and I think, but that doesn't mean to say that people don't use Kindle anymore.
mm.
So I think it's that sort of thing that it just becomes a little bit more. There's a pocket for that and a pocket for this.
Yeah, a little bit more of a novelty instead of like this
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
is now.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think yeah. So I think that plays into the whole fact that so much of kind of I don't know, it feels like everything nowadays is so trend driven.
yeah,
So it's like, yeah, this is amazing, everyone loves this, and then something else comes along
yeah. But I've seen that
that
with
gets
other
replaced
things
and it
for
gets
years.
replaced. Yeah.
You look at fashion, it's like, well, fashion's that.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But it just happens to be everything else. No,
Mm,
Um, cool. Now, what I was so maybe it's a case that what with all the the, the Trumpian type, fake news and all that sort of thing.
mm,
In the
mm,
end, we'll get to the point where people go, right, okay, they can spot that as being nonsense. This
mm,
is a nonsense thing, or this is something I'm not sure about. And being a little bit more careful about stuff, and then that hopefully will bring back. We want to listen to something where it might not be perfect, but it's more unbiased
mm.
than
Yeah, but
other
then
things.
that's riding on the assumption that people have a level of critical thinking that they will
Uh,
question what they
yeah,
hear.
yeah.
And
But again, I would say I can go back in time and think there've been a lot of people who didn't do any critical thinking right
mm,
back in the 1970s, or even the 1930s,
mm,
where people suddenly thought, oh, yeah, these guys are good bet, just happened to
yeah,
be Mosley or Hitler or Stalin. So perhaps it never
yeah,
changed. It's,
yeah, no,
it's
it's
human
true.
nature.
Yeah.
Um, so what DJing? Let's talk a
Mm,
little bit about that, and then we'll see where we go with.
yeah.
I've got another couple of thoughts. So when did you start with that? Who
I think
inspired you?
what inspired me was so I have one of the mates that I actually traveled with. He like DJed his whole life. His dad was a DJ, this and that. So he always DJed at home. I've always been into music like pretty heavily. And then they kind of just fell into place, like
Yeah,
being mates with him, being inspired by him, being like, oh yeah, let's have a go, Louis. Let me have a little fiddle
yeah,
and then yeah, 2020, I bought my first little controller, um, and then just never stopped from there. Really, just kind of taught myself. Didn't know how to do something, look it up on YouTube, and just kind of experiment, and mess around, and get it wrong, and like just from there, just carried on. Really, it just tied well and well with having this such a big love for music.
yeah, yeah. So you've done quite a few bits and pieces with DJing, haven't you, on and off?
Yeah, I've been going. Yeah, so yeah, it started 2020, and that was kind of peak lockdown, so nothing really
Yeah,
happened, which I think was kind of a good thing, to be honest,
yeah, I
because
think
it's
so.
just like in my bedroom, just locked in and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
focused on it all. And then came to uni, joined the DJ Society, kind of got more experience playing with the proper club standard equipment, and then kind of through there met people, and then kind of that led to me playing out at pretty much all the clubs in Cardiff now.
yeah,
And then, yeah, kind of naturally progressed onto me wanting to make my own music as well with it.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I've actually I've actually interviewed a few DJs,
Mm.
and I used to teach Andy Tong, who was Pete Tong's brother.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's interesting that that was one of those things, DJing. When that first sort of came out, it was a bit like, well, why would you pay somebody a lot of money to put records on? I mean, seriously, people were thinking that.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it became this sort of amazing art form
Mm,
that, with people like, obviously Pete Tong being
yeah.
one of those sort of characters in the early days, right? Um, and then, Ministry of Sound and all that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And and I think it's a fascinating thing because and the other point is, when I get involved with, I don't do so much of the teaching obviously anymore, but one of the points that I used to say to a lot of the guys is like when they're getting really good, and they might be the bass player or whatever, lots of them went on to DJ as well.
Mm,
And that became one of those things that made the real difference for them about, obviously for them earning money, but also
mm.
connecting up with other people. Like you're saying, the
Yeah, it's amazing.
networking.
Yeah, amazing way to meet people, like-minded people.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Um,
networking thing. Yeah.
yeah, I think the making money part is kind of interesting because up here, like, it's such a saturated market now. Like, everyone and their dog is a DJ, and it's like up here. I don't think I've actually. I think I've been paid for one gig in my time in the 4 years that I've been DJing in Cardiff, and that's I think purely because it's like if you ask to be paid, then they'll just ask someone else who doesn't care about being paid and just
Yeah.
does it
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So it's
But
kind of never really been about the money. It's always been about just playing with my mates, playing songs that I love and that I want to share with people that I've researched hours and hours, going down rabbit holes,
yeah. Yeah.
finding
Yeah.
these weird, obscure tracks,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and sharing them with the world.
But there's an interesting link there with people playing in bands. You can either
Mm,
sort of go and just play because you enjoy playing.
mm.
You pay wherever it is, the local festival or even some of the other things, or you're one of these people that's playing the venues that you know functions and all the rest of it.
Mhm.
So the guys that I know, they tend to be the ones they're obviously part of their way of bringing in an income is that they're playing in like a band that's doing a function. And
Mhm.
because
Mm.
of that, they're already in the paying,
Yeah.
the paying circuit. And instead of that venue also getting a DJ, if they fulfill that function, that's where it really
Yeah.
pays off for them.
Yeah, like private.
But you're right, I don't DJ, but I can imagine it's
It's,
like
it's like anything now, though. Everything's so saturated.
it
But
is. Well, my classic example of that is guitar teaching.
yeah,
Because when I started off, there wasn't anyone
yeah, no,
where I lived, particularly because I played classical guitar as well. But it was like I could walk into any school or anything like that because there wasn't anybody doing what I was doing. And now that is just not the situation. And particularly
yeah,
where I lived, most of the people that were then teaching were people that I taught. So it's
yeah,
like I
yeah.
generated my own
Your own
competition.
enemies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Um, so I know you've done a couple of things. You've interviewed somebody who's a surfer.
Hmm.
So this is
Yeah.
an interesting point. That do you see that as being an area that you would be interested in going into, like journalism for sports?
See, probably not for sports, to be honest. Um, just purely because surfing's my sport. And
Or just surfing?
just, yeah, well, yeah, I could go into, yeah, I wouldn't mind going into surfing journalism, but no, I really want to go into more of the music and culture side
Oh,
of
okay.
it
Oh,
all.
okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
I should have mentioned at the start that I co-founded this thing called Greenhouse, which is like an online blog for like the
Oh,
Cardiff electronic music scene.
oh, okay. Oh, that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, that's something I do. Should have said that at the start.
Oh, okay.
But
So what? No, that's interesting. So what? Tell me a little bit about that.
so we started out, it was just like an idea, like, oh, we could do some articles and then put on some events alongside these articles. So I think so far on our website we've got like six, out, but we've got a few more in the pipelines. Anything from talking to a venue owner about what it means to them to put on these events and like really highlighting grassroots
Yeah,
people and places and
yeah,
movements. So we've interviewed a lot of local collectives here in Cardiff
yeah,
about their opinions on the scene and whether it's, I don't know, where it's going and this and that. Because Cardiff scene is quite an interesting one in comparison to somewhere like Bristol or London or Leeds, where electronic music scene is massive. It's huge here in Cardiff, but there isn't really I don't know, it's not like it doesn't have support, but it's struggling all the time. It's always on an uphill battle. I suppose similarly to everywhere else in the UK with struggling grassroots venues.
yeah,
Um, but Cardiff seems to struggle, especially in comparison. Um, so we're just kind of documenting that and kind of started because, well, one of my lecturers told me that, well, said something that stuck that magazines are like cultural documentations of
yes,
history. So it's kind of like what we're doing with Greenhouse. We want to document the electronic music scene in Cardiff in the
yeah,
years that we're here and kind of make something for the scene
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
such an
So in a way,
amazing.
because when you're talking about that, it made me think of the fanzine thing in the punk period.
Mm,
That was basically people just typing something up and sticking a couple of
mm.
photographs on them and literally photocopying bits of paper and then sticking them together
Yeah,
into a magazine.
yeah.
And some of those fanzines were really, really interesting. And again, if you're a young, well, don't have to be young, do you? If you're a sort of an act, an artist who's starting out, getting some sort of coverage is really useful.
Mm.
Really, really useful. And
Oh yeah.
it's not thousands of people. It's just just because they're often very, very small circulations, or were back in the day, but they became part of the whole movement.
Mm. Yeah.
You know? And I think that's a really interesting thing you're saying there, because again, it benefits the venues.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, and that used to be the other thing about, the punk and post-punk period, where you'd get lots of little places popping up, often in areas where there were a lot of students,
Hmm.
obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and it was all part of, the art movement, or in your case, the journalist movement would be the same sort of thing, I would say, where, where we were, there was a very big sort of art uh, college, very, very well known art college. And the amount of bands in that area were just enormous.
Mm.
Um, but it was a scene, as you say.
Mm.
It was a you could look at a style of band and go, well, that's a midway punk, whatever,
Yeah.
or spin off of that, or and you move away from that a little bit, and there's something going on just up the road, just slightly different
Mm.
type of thing. But I think that's a really fascinating thing that you're doing, and I can see that would have real. You could develop that in, well, not that necessarily that, but there could be a lot of other offshoots that would come out.
Yeah, well, it's kind of just giving back to this community that we've been kind of adopted into
Yeah, yeah,
through
yeah,
coming to uni. Like the people that we met, like the local people from Cardiff who are in the scene, and just like the amazing friends we've met and the places we've been to. And it's
yeah,
just kind of, yeah, documenting that and kind of giving something back to something that's played such an integral part in our lives
yeah,
that we feel doesn't really get the recognition it deserves
yeah,
almost. Like a lot of places here are struggling because of XYZ regulations, rent, cost of living,
yeah,
this, that,
yeah,
and the 40 million other things.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I suppose it's trying to bring attention to it.
Interestingly, I don't want to keep harking back to the past, but I do actually think there's just so many
Mm.
sort of resonations of things. that often really interesting musical styles and art styles, they
Mm.
don't come from places that are well heeled,
Yeah.
who aren't struggling, right?
Mm.
So obviously punk is a classic example of that with all the stuff that was going on at that period of time, mid to late 70s.
Hmm.
Nobody had any money.
Mm.
And a lot of people were living in squats. A lot of the venues were basically derelict, virtually derelict little
Yeah.
outhouses of um, something that was a factory, and suddenly,
Mm.
they turned it into a nightclub type of thing. But the same was true with early 60s. Same
Hmm.
thing. People did, it was post, just post-war stuff. Nobody had
Mm.
any money.
Mm.
Everything was terribly depressed, late 50s. And you could keep going back with this and looking
Yeah.
at it and
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. Yeah.
there is something in that you don't, these, these things, these meaningful musical movements come from this sort of derelict spit and sawdust type
Mm.
positions.
Yeah.
And I think, good journalism comes from that as well. It doesn't come from
Mm.
hanging around art galleries in London type of thing. Because I think there's something to be said, with that sort of slightly grimy, gritty,
Yeah. Grassroots,
grassroots,
low
problematic,
funding.
people
Yeah.
making do, people being inventive about how they do things.
Mm.
Um, I'm definitely on that sort of viewpoint that that's where a lot of art comes from. It comes from that
Mm.
having to do something because you've got something to say,
Yeah.
not
No,
because it's your
100%.
opinion. It's because you're surviving
Mm.
by making a statement. I think that's
Yeah.
important,
Exactly.
you know. Um, yeah, that's really cool. So, so we spoke a little bit about that. So just sort of wrap up a bit, because this has been really, really fascinating. And
Mm.
and and again, it's nice to see that a lot of the things that make interesting journalism and art. And I think I mentioned to you, I've got a couple of really good friends who work for the BBC, and one of them was a
Mm.
really well-known BBC journalist. Um, and that a lot of what they've said to me about stuff was about impartiality, and
Mm. Mm.
obviously how they see things have gone. It's a bit like, well, this is an interesting world
Yeah.
that we've entered into. Um, but I think this is the thing that once we get over where we are at the moment in this particular little black spot of craziness,
Yeah.
um, let's just put it as that. I think it will. There will be something else. I don't know what it's going to be, but it always seems to be the way that something else comes out of a situation.
Mm.
Um, and it'll be good and it'll be bad and all the rest of it.
What do you
So,
mean something else? What sort of?
well, we're obviously getting to a point where I think a lot of people just think, I don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah. Very
really do
true.
think a
Yeah.
lot of people
Yeah.
just thinking like,
Kind of fall into being told on what to believe, and then they accept that for what is.
and I think a lot of people, and again, a lot of people thought like that for a long time, but
Mm.
not a, you know, people obviously thought that what they were being told in the newspapers back in the 1920s and 30s was nonsense, because
Yeah.
it didn't, it didn't sort of answer all the questions that they had in their head. But now we've got that to the point where, because you got ever since rolling news and all the rest of it, we are utterly bombarded by things.
Mm. Mm.
And I don't think people have really got the capacity to deal with the amount of stuff. So the stress level, because it's not good news generally.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
It's perpetually stress inducing
Yeah. Yeah.
news.
Yeah. Terrible scenes, terrible words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
And I think
awful.
something that connects with the arts in that, that sort of
Hmm.
thing that where you're dealing with ordinary people
Mm,
creating, grassroots stuff in whatever form of art that is, whether that's writing books or it's, music or whatever. I
mm.
think is important for people to realise that, life is just carrying on like it's always carried on. People doing
Mm.
stuff.
And it always will.
Yes. And it always will. And maybe
Yeah,
that's one of those sort of little panaceas that when you look back and you think, well, what's different? A little
yeah,
bit more exaggerated, maybe,
yeah.
and a little bit more bizarre, where you think the old, or the old sort of decorum in like politics is a good example
Hmm,
of this,
hmm.
is maybe falling apart at the moment, but it's not the first time it hasn't fallen apart.
Yeah,
So, what happens after that? Well, maybe it sort of settles down a little bit.
yeah, and
But
then
generally, I think it's this sort of thing about people being able to read about stuff that they're actually genuinely interested in that's different.
mm, yeah, 100%. And that's what I think I'd love to do with my career going forward is finding these interesting stories and unheard of stories that you wouldn't even think that you'd
Exactly.
enjoy knowing about or enjoy reading about. You just stumble across it and then, oh yeah, this is really gripping.
Yeah, it
Like I
is.
think
And
I think
also,
one of the biggest reasons I've kind of got into journalism is through Vice, who do like watching their documentaries and reading their articles on just bizarre things going on in the world that you would
yeah,
never have found out
no,
for like
exactly.
in a way.
But they're not, the thing is, if you're reading about things that you go like, oh my God, that's interesting.
Mm,
But it's not one of those things that you've got to have to worry about, is
mm,
Vice,
yeah.
right? Um, Sort of slightly quirky stories that you go, well, my God, I've not thought of things in that way. I think
Mm,
that is really, really encouraging.
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant.
And
Okay, well, that's been an amazing chat, Noah.
yeah,
Really,
thanks for having
really
me.
interesting. And I wish you all the best for what you're doing. I know you're doing all right up there.
Yeah, it's going all right.
Yeah, that's good. All right, mate. So yeah, we'll say goodbye now, but don't disappear.
Yeah, I went.
We'll have a quick chat before we finish. All right, but
Yeah,
that's been
wicked.
great.
Amazing. Cheers.
See you soon. Cheers, mate.